folded arms at the divine lotus feet. Sairam, everyone. It's such an honor to be here this morning, and I've decided to keep the title Inspire and Be Inspired. This is a quote I came up with a long time ago, and it's not from an egoistic standpoint, but the fact that I truly believe that we, as Swami's devotees, as just humans, can inspire each other while being inspired as well. I think to me it's always a two-way street. We all have that capacity to inspire others. I take so much inspiration in everyone that I meet with, including young kids. All of us have something to teach each other. Today I'm speaking, but all of us have this amazing, rich experiences of Swami that we can all learn from. Yesterday, we heard these beautiful experiences, and it was so inspiring and so humbling when we were hearing those experiences. And it always teaches me that we just need to be open with each other. We need to support each other. And Sister Anu was talking about the blessings we have as a Sai community. I always think that we are so tremendously blessed to be in a Sai family. If you think about it, we are there for each other no matter what. We are always there for each other. And part of that is the whole aspect of being constantly aware of our Swami in everything that we do. And I'll share through my own journey how I came about, or how I've actually transformed myself. Some time ago, at one of the talks I was giving, someone asked me the question, what was the biggest change in your life? And I gave this long story about a beautiful, beautiful experience that I had while I was in Puttaparthi. And after the talk, I realized that was an experience. What I really meant to say, and what I should be saying, is that, how I've transformed myself, how each one of us actually transforms ourselves. That change that we want to see, we need to keep a progress on. To me, that was much more beautiful than just talking about an experience, actually. I think we are our own judges in how we come about in that journey. So my own transformation, I always think, I'm one of those people from a very young age, just following my heart. And sometimes, when you follow, at least when you think you're following your heart, you could get into trouble. I've actually ran away from home, not to escape from my parents. Someone just asked me, do you want to come over? I said, sure. Sometimes when we do this as young people, the intention is always good, but sometimes, we might get into problems as well. But I think we as adults, when we look at young people who want to kind of run away or follow their passion, we shouldn't discourage them. We should kind of sit down with them, we encourage what they want to do and be there for them, actually, but never get away from the aspect of following our passions. Having confidence, and sometimes our confidence, again, can get us into trouble. Sometimes we are overconfident, but at the same time, being confident with what we want to do and having that courage. And at the end of the day, to me, it's all about faith and surrender. Faith in Swami that whatever we do, irrespective of whether it turns out okay or not, it's still a beautiful journey. And I think the fact that we made that effort, to me, is much more important than the result. And I love this quote about what Swami talks about surrender. Swami always says, why do you want to give me something that I actually gave you? We always say, I want to give all this that I have. And I'll talk about that later on as well. Swami says the true meaning of surrender is a recognition of the fact that in everyone and everywhere God is present. I've completely changed how I view people these days. We always tend to meet someone, spend some time with them, experience them before we actually make a decision, am I going to like this person or not? I completely kind of shifted that to the opposite direction. The first thing when I see anyone that I come across is that God is I love that person first. Doesn't matter, because that, to me, that kind of takes away all the biases. And then, of course, as you get to know them, then you make the right decision about, do I still want to be associated with that person or not? But that, you have time to do that. But the first thing is recognizing God in that person right away, loving that person right away. It's all about love. Swami, in every quote, in every direction, he always talks about the importance of love. And to me, that's such an important aspect of it, how we conduct ourselves in our daily lives. I'm a doctor, as you know. One day, one of my nurses, nurses, I deal with a lot of very sick patients with liver disease, and they're very frustrated. They get angry sometimes because they're not doing so well, and so they call the nurses first. We as doctors are shielded from that first call, and they kind of show their frustration to the nurses. They get angry, they're upset, they're yelling at the nurses, and one day my nurse comes to me and she says, "You know what? I actually found the solution." When nurses, when the patients actually call me and very frustrated. I said, "What?" He said, so my email at University of Michigan, it's University of Michigan, not Buckeyes. Where is Vishal? And she said, so my email is omsairam@umich.edu. And she doesn't know what Om Sai Ram means, but she actually kind of reflects that word Om Sai Ram with my calmness. So she says, every time a patient just screaming at me, yelling at me, she just raises her hand, she says Om Sai Ram to herself. And she says, that just calms me down. And she said that word I associate with you. And she said, ever since I started saying Om Sai Ram, I just feel so calm with my patients. To me, that's a true reflection of Swami's love, what he's trying to teach us. Anytime someone praises us, right, if praises me for what I do, to me, I always immediately think about it's a blessing, it's a reflection of Swami. And I think, to me at least, that's how I want to live my life throughout. I wanted to talk about my own father. He was really an inspiration to me from the beginning. I didn't realize that inspiration till much later on. He's always serving everyone. He used to call people from the streets, he was a doctor, both my parents are doctors, to kind of help them. And I really didn't understand the significance of that. There were times he was actually giving my stuff to them, and I'm like, that didn't go well in my mind, at that point at least. Now I find myself doing the same. But to me, he was my idol, literally my idol. And on weekends, and he's like very tall, he's like 6+, and I was a small kid, and I used to wear his white coat on weekends, just walking in the house, as if I'm a doctor. And, just like that's not me, but that's how exactly, if you were seeing me when I was 7 or 8, that's how I used to be at home. To me, he was my all. He passed away when I was very young, but after that, Swami, I was introduced to Swami, and of course, Swami is now my father. I actually talk about Swami as my father, actually, in most of my conversations. Of course, he's my God, he's my all. Swami says, no joy can equal the joy of serving others, and I'll talk about joy later on in my conversation. And this word is very important to me. Next slide. And Swami has given me so many opportunities to serve. He actually gives all of us so many opportunities to serve. It's just that what we do in our lives, and he's making sure that when yesterday, one of our sisters talked about taking care of her son, to me, what other services can we have as a parent, right? That's such an important service. We don't have to think about, am I doing this or that? That service is such an important thing. So he always gives us opportunities. Of course, some seem very much in the limelight and some don't, but all are equally very, very important, very, very blessed as well. So I've had so many opportunities to go across the globe, either part of humanitarian relief or medical camps or other things, actually. So this was a beautiful experience. What it truly showed me was that if we do our part, a lot I always say this, I always say that if we do our part, so much more comes to us. It doesn't have to be exactly what we gave. It's much, much, much more. And I think we always have to be open to it and recognize that as a fact. This was the first international medical conference. Now it's about 20 years ago. I was just volunteering at that time. I was just helping out with some brief things, getting photos together. That was it. So I flew down to India. And I'm one of those people, I can't just sit around, I have to do something. So I go to this set of brothers, they were helping with the registration and all that. And I said, hey, can I help? One thing important is that I always tell people is that, if you want to do something, just say it. Other people, of course, sometimes people ask us for help, but to me, much more important is that telling people what we want to do. You never know who will actually kind of take you in. Otherwise, if we don't do it, we don't ever get that opportunity sometimes. So it's very important for us, especially all the young people, if you want to do something, just say it out. And don't worry about what the consequence is. Someone might say no, which is absolutely fine. But if they say yes, a lot may come to it. So when I volunteered to help, of course, there's so much love. As his brother said, of course, brother, you can help. And then, I was getting more and more involved with the whole conference thing. It was such a beautiful conference. Swami blessed everyone so much. And at the end, Swami picked like 9 people to give these mementos, special mementos at the end, actually. And I was one of those 9. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because this is where, I went to the conference just helping with some photos to now receiving this memento directly from Swami. What did that teach me is that doing our effort because we want to do that, and with absolutely no expectations. I wasn't expecting anything, let alone being blessed with Swami with that memento. So to me, that was such a big honor and such a big blessing, actually. It was an amazing experience, and that's something I've kind of carried on along, all through my life. We've been involved in a lot of humanitarian reliefs. I really want to give a shout out, and throughout my talk, I'll give a lot of shout out to the young adults. Before Haiti happened, I got a flavor of humanitarian relief, especially with Hurricane Katrina, which happened just prior to this. And as some of you may or may not know, or most of you may not know, it was really our young adults of the organization who actually started the whole thing. There was a delay in making decisions, but young adults from Region 5, and then they got other young adults across the regions, including Region 3, say, hey, we're going to just go. We're going to go and help. And I tagged along being a doctor. They needed an adult chaperone, so I took advantage of every aspect. This, that's something, I always tell people, especially young people, to take advantage of situations. And not in a way, selfish way, but for your own good and for your own learning. You have a lot of people, whether it's in school, in the Sai community, you have all these people who want to help you. Take advantage of that. There's no harm done, a lot of gain if you want to. So I tagged along with them, and a lot happened. But one of the reason I'm mentioning the Hurricane Katrina is that at the end of the day, the first trip, the priest, we adopted a church in Mississippi, and the priest comes. He made this emotional talk, thanking everyone, and he told the young adults. He said, I don't know who you are. He knew about the organization, but when you just say, I'm from the Sathya Sai Organization, it doesn't always register with people. They know that you're from an organization. He said, I don't know who you are, where you came from, but I know God sent you. That implicit faith that you see someone serving selflessly. He was looking at all these young adults and saying, I know God sent you. Everyone was crying, including him. To me, that's the power of the youth. And I'm so thankful always, always, always for our youth, because they teach us so much in every aspect of our lives. The Haiti project really showed me, at least, or showed all of us as an organization, is that we have never been really involved in huge humanitarian reliefs in a big way, but Haiti kind of completely turned it around. What it showed me that when we come together in unity, working with others, how much we can actually do together. To me, Haiti was a perfect example. A lot of times when there's a big humanitarian crisis, a lot of the big organizations like the American Red Cross, there's so many out there, they come, they take care of things, they leave after a few months. But the SSSIO organization was actually involved almost 3 years, the medical for a full year. We were sending teams every single week for a year. And then we had help with housing, help with food for almost 3 years, actually. So we were really involved for a very, very long time. So the Sathya Sai World Foundation, we team up with an organization called Direct Relief International, based out of USA, the United Nations, and the US Aid at that time. United Nations it has a huge presence in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. And we were going in and out of, we had these badges, SSSIO badges. We weren't actually officially registered with the UN, but when you're doing God's work, it gives you this tremendous confidence. So we were walking in and out UN campus with all this security. No one asked us a single question of who exactly we were. We were just showing our badges. They would allow us in every single day, because they used to actually talk about, give updates and give us opportunities to serve in that area, actually. And this was a beautiful, this is Swami's Leela I wanted to share, is that, so we reached, those days initially, you had to go through Dominican Republic. You couldn't go directly into Haiti because the airport was all destroyed. So we flew into Dominican Republic, reached very late at night, but we had to get up by 2 o'clock to get on this huge bus that you see in that photo. That's from the US Embassy. So we went to the US Embassy. We were 9 of us from the SSSIO organization and 2 random guys. That's it. It was a 60-seater bus. So we were supposed to leave at 3, and I can see the driver very restless because the gentleman who's supposed to get us on the bus, he had that list of people who were approved to get on the bus, actually. He never turned up. Now it's almost 4 o'clock, and because this driver was 6 hours into Port-au-Prince, and he had to drive back 6 hours. Okay. So he was getting very restless. He finally calls around 3:30 or 3:45 to this gentleman. He says, "Hey, where are you? I'm waiting. People are ready." He said, and the guy on the other side is, saying, "Today's my day off. I'm not coming. Just let them in." So the driver says, "Okay, get in." And then we reach the border of the city, and we reach the border, and the bus stops. I can see all this security, the local security coming towards the bus. We were all drowsy. We were, exhausted, actually. And I was not even the lead of the team. I was just one of the 9 members. And so one of the security guards comes in, and he says, "Who's the leader of this team?" And all the other 8 brothers put their finger at me, point their finger at me. This is where, even though you're so scared inside, you got to show confidence. I always teach young people at work, no matter how scared you are, never reflect that anxiety to others, because the person in front of you is looking for some confidence in you. So if you show that anxiety, they're going to get scared. In this case, they're going to get mad. So I walked nervously to this guy, and he said, "Who actually asked you to get into this bus?" At that time, first of all, I couldn't remember. We had met a few brothers. I couldn't remember any of their names. And suddenly, out of the blue, I just said Miguel. I had to think of some Hispanic name. I said, "Miguel, brother, Mr. Miguel." And the guy looks at me for a second. He says, "Oh, okay." He lets us in. So we reach the border, Port-au-Prince, immigration, they take care of all. So this is actually the U.S. aid, U.S. security, actually, accompanying us to make sure that we actually, because we're part of the U.S. aid group. So we go to the other side. They drop us at the U.S. Embassy. So here I'm already planning. I was actually staying back much longer than the other 8. So I said, okay, let's plan our return trip back. Let's go to the U.S. Embassy, reserve ourselves on this bus for the return trip. I wanted to make sure all the other brothers, went safe. So we go the next morning to the U.S. Embassy. The guy's looking at me, very puzzled first. Why am I telling him this whole story? And he goes, half an hour later, he comes back and he says, "First of all, I don't know who you are. I don't know how you got into this bus. Apparently, our names were not even on that list." So this is Swami's Leela. And he also said, "You're never going to go back on that bus again." But this is Swami's Leela, right? He made sure that the guy with the list never turned up that morning. And he created this whole maya, so that we could actually get on that bus. We were never meant to be on that bus. And these might look like chances, but these cannot be chances, especially in a foreign country with so much is going on at that time. That's, to me, that was a great example of doing our part. As I said, I'm going to talk about the youth. People always ask when we do, of course, for humanitarian relief, we need everyone. When we do medical camps, of course, we need doctors. But the way we look at doctor to non-medical volunteers, the ratio is 1 to 5. For every doctor, we need at least 5 non-medical people. So there's so much opportunity for everyone who's not in the medical field, actually. But our youth actually did a lot throughout the year. So for every medical team, there's a parallel YA team that we organized as well, most from the U.S. So we had adopted 2 churches with orphanages there. So our youth did so many things. They were helping, who are in the medical field with the medical component of it, empowering the local youth to actually kind of raise up and help their own families and their homes and the young people there, cleaning up. A lot of our youth were musicians, and one of the orphanages had a music school which was partly destroyed. Our youth were actually teaching those kids music as well. So our youth did so much while some of us were doing other things. Earlier, I talked about my nerves and the word Om Sai Ram. What we do reflects, God. This was a beautiful example in Haiti. So after a week, and the other brothers had left, I was staying back. It was a Sunday, and 2 volunteers from the small church came to me and said, "Hey, we are going to the service. Do you want to come?" I said, "Of course." So we went to the church, and hundreds of people there. They all gathered for the Sunday sermon. And then there were a lot of priests from other churches in town. And then each priest, gave a speech. And then, as far as I could tell, every priest had given a speech. And then the main priest of the small church gets up and he says, "Today we have a guest who's going to give the sermon today." So here I'm looking at the crowd. God, I've heard from every priest that I can see. Who's the priest who's in hiding? Who hasn't come? And then he announces my name. So here I'm thinking, I'm not a Christian by birth. I've never been to a sermon. Here I am giving sermon to these hundreds of people. it was a powerful lesson to me. What it showed was when we do God's work, the person in front of us sees God in us. He's not, of course, I'm sure he knows that he may or may not know that I'm a Christian, but he knows I'm not from that country. They were all speaking in French. But to him, it didn't matter. What really mattered was the work that I was doing. Of course, all of us, we do. That's what people look at. People just see through it. For them, I could give that sermon. It didn't matter whether I was a Christian or not, that same faith or not. I could give that sermon to them. How powerful is that to each one of us when we think of it that way? So here, sermon. So here I'm trying to remember every Swami's quote. That literally was my sermon, actually. Every Swami's quote, love all, serve all. I was kind of empowering them with Swami's quotes, and every 2 to 3 minutes, the entire crowd was getting up, saying Hallelujah, and then they sit down. And then more Swami's quotes, more Hallelujahs. So it was a beautiful moment, a scary moment, but a very powerful lesson to me personally. That how do we kind of live our lives, being that every second of our lives, and not kind of changing from time to time based on the situation or whatever it is. How do we kind of live in that state every moment of our lives, irrespective of what is going on? We've been involved, we're not doing it right now, but we used to be involved in medical camps in Prasanthi Nilayam, and some of you in this room have been witness to that and participants in that. It really taught us so much. We can actually do medical camps anywhere in the world now because we have that rich experience of doing medical camps in Puttaparthi. Swami allowed us to do that. And it was such a huge blessing. It taught us how to organize camps, what to do, what to order, and everything. And one thing we learned over the years is that anyone who comes to us asking for help, just see God in them. They don't have to look a certain way. They don't have to feel divine, or sometimes we bias ourselves when we see others trying to decide how and when to help. Just help, and that's these camps have really kind of taught us so much over the years of just seeing a Swami, a God, in every person that we serve, actually. And one day, Swami always used to come towards the women. Always talk with the women doctors or women volunteers and doctors. And one day, our women of the team, they were worried about the men. So one day they asked Swami, how about the men? And Swami said, why do you worry about them, and I'll take care of them. But he also made this very powerful point, a statement. He said, the opportunity that I'm giving you to serve is itself my pada namaskar to you. What a powerful statement, right? What a powerful note. Sister Anu talked about so many people coming to help, to serve. I think for all of us, any opportunity that we get at any point in our lives, no matter how small or how big that we think it is, we have to think of his pada namaskar, his of divine blessings. And I think if we do that, we will be much more happy as well. So it was very, and one morning, Swami actually called just the women for an interview. And it's always this illusion, Maya, right? And all the men were like, sulking, it's like, we didn't get called. So what happened was, we had a duty. That means, we had to go to the hospital at 8 o'clock, and you can see, the Maya setting in. I think we need to be very careful every time, our mind starts playing games, that we need to get back on track. So 8 is approaching. We all knew that we had to go to the hospital to work, but some of the brothers were saying, we should wait because he might call us. He called the women, but he might call us. And I said, no. we have a duty, we have to go there, right? So, most, I think a few stayed back, I think, but most of us left, and then the others joined as well. That's important because, we still need to do our duty. Of course, getting called, interviewed by Swami or dreams of Swami is amazing, but never forget what we are supposed to be, why we are in this world. Yesterday we were talking about the purpose of life, and Swami reminds us always the purpose of life is to serve others. That's the first purpose, actually. So, and that afternoon, actually, Swami did call all of us, actually. And he first called the man, and he was kind of talking to us, he's also trying to teach us discipline as well. He made this, he said, how many he asked. I think we gave a number, and he said, I don't think you'll fit in the room inside. We're all like, no, Swami, we'll fit, and he looks at one of the brothers, who's a big guy. He says, some of you are kind of big, and we all start laughing. And at that very moment, you can see the women coming towards the interview room. I was actually reminded of this morning during Nagar Sankirtan. Sister Anu said, be disciplined, 4 per row or 3 per row. And I could tell that the women were stuck to that from the beginning till the end. Us men, we started 3 per row, then 2, 4, 2, 6, And I was thinking of that experience with Swami this morning, that discipline is so important. And then we were all laughing, and Swami, says, look at the women. And in Telugu, he said, Devatalu vastunnaru chudandi. Goddesses are coming, just, I think, he always kind of showed the significance of women, that discipline and the service. And that was such a teachable moment for us. Of course, we can joke and all that, but there are times we need to be disciplined as well. So, he did call us in the interview. And in the interview, he was going to everyone and asking, what do you want, what do you want? I was pretty confident that he was going to ask me the same question as well. And I already had an answer, for that. And then, as he was asking other people, then the Maya sets in, your mind starts playing games, because one brother said, Swami, can I have a ring? So he manifested a ring. So my mind is thinking, maybe I should ask for a ring, Then I immediately said, no, I want to tell this to Swami. So Swami looks at me and said, what do you want? He said, I said, I want to serve you, Swami, for the rest of my life. And he said, why? You always have to be ready for the answer as well. Just saying something to Swami doesn't. And he says, why? I said, it makes me happy, Swami. And he said, this is when he said that, the word joy comes in. He said, happiness is external. It's what you're experiencing is joy. He says, joy comes from within. I can never forget that, because anytime I do something and I'm reflecting on it, I always think about, is it actually giving me joy? It's very powerful from that aspect. And then he spent a long time with us, and about an hour later, he actually gets up. So I thought the interview was done, and he goes up to the corner of the room, puts the fan at a higher speed. He said, it's a bit hot here. I don't think you all are comfortable. He comes back and sits, and he talks for another half an hour again. So caring, motherly. One of the places if any of us gets an opportunity, of course, there's opportunities everywhere, to really experience the love and service of the Russian devotees. Most of them have never seen Swami. Most of them, they get dreams of Swami. For them, Swami is there every moment. It's very powerful when you actually meet with them, the love, the selflessness. So this is one of the trips to Kazakhstan. And those days, Kazakhstan, if you have to apply for you have to apply for a visa, and they work, they take 5 weekdays, but one of the weekdays is for Kazakh people. So what that means is that if you were to apply for a visa Monday, it doesn't get processed till the next Monday or Tuesday, actually, because Wednesday is for Kazakhs only. So they don't actually count that day. So 2 + 2 + 1. So, of course, I decided to go, and I was leaving on a Saturday, and I applied on a Monday. And the guy tells me, you're going to get it next Monday. I'm like, no. I need it by Saturday. Sometimes you got to, and I was sending them faxes, leaving messages. I was getting panicking because, this was Wednesday. Wednesday, I knew they weren't going to work for the Americans. But so I was talking with, some of you might know Dr. Upadhyay. He was our lead at that time. I talked to him and said, Dr. Upadhyay, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to come because this guy keeps saying I'm not going to get my visa till next Monday. He said, you're coming. Then he said, last night I had a dream. In that dream was a Kazakhstan medical camp, and you were actually in the camp, he said. That was very reassuring. And by this time, the Kazakh embassy had received so many faxes from me and so many voicemails, they were thinking, who's this crazy guy? But what made them do was they actually called me because they were thinking that I'm going crazy or something bad is going to happen to me on this side, worrying about the visa. And he was trying to explain to me about Monday. Then I was saying, sir, no, I need it by Friday. Then he said, okay, do you have a friend in New York? So I'm suddenly thinking, who are all my friends in New York? So I called Brother Bob Singh. He said, if you can tell your friend to come, send your passport to him, and then ask him to come and meet me Thursday. So I immediately overnighted it. Brother Bob took it on Thursday morning. And this gentleman was actually waiting for Bob at the embassy, actually. And he gave him the visa, stamped the visa, gave it to Bob, and Bob overnighted it to me, and I was able to get on the flight Saturday. And again, these are so many examples all of us have in our lives. We worry. It doesn't mean we still have to do our work, though. I mean, all the faxes and the voicemails paid off. So that's the work. I can't say Swami's going to take care of it. We still have to do our part. We all have to keep reminding, as we do, of what we need to do, irrespective of what happens actually. And so in Kazakhstan, one of the things I've learned over time is the importance of listening to each other. This is so important, especially for doctors. Sometimes we get so excited about new treatments or things that we can do. Of course, they're there, but we got to listen. We got to listen to the patient, and this is very important. And this lady, so in Russia and Kazakhstan, what they do is that they separate the patients based on the problem. So I'm a gastroenterologist. So this lady said she has some GI problems, so they sent her to me, and that's my volunteer. This young man has been blessed with Swami so many times. Amazing young man. So we were talking to her. It was very clear to me that, she had some GI problems, but not a whole lot. She really wanted to talk about her life, her situations, her depression, her family. So half an hour or 45 minutes goes by, and then she gets up, and this is exactly what she says. She says, I see peace in your eyes and love in your heart. That was a very pivotal moment. Both of us are crying now. And because, again, the whole aspect of how we conduct ourselves, are we reflecting God? Are we reflecting the divine in how we conduct ourselves, how we connect with others? That's the most important thing. I've had patients at the University of Michigan say, they're completely out, when I do procedures. I had one patient, when she got up, she says, I knew God was with me because when you were doing the endoscopy, I could see a halo around. And I think we need to listen. Each one has different faiths, how they view God. I think it's very important for us to listen and respect that. I want to talk a moment about, we've been blessed trying to set up, in setting up, I should say, a gastroenterology endoscopy unit in Puttaparthi. I had this thought once when I went to Swami's birthday. I'm a gastroenterologist. Of course, when I go, I do just general medicine, but I'm thinking it'll be nice to do procedures and all that. That's the best way I can serve in my own field. So I come home, and Dr. Narendra Reddy calls me. I never talked to him about this, actually. He calls me and he says, "Hey, Hari, I was thinking it might be good to start a GI unit in Parthi." I mean, it was just, to me, it was amazing, actually. I'm like, "Oh, really?" That's exactly what I was thinking. He said, "I'm actually going to go to Puttaparthi in a few months. Send me a list of GI doctors in the Sai organization." So I made individual portfolios of 9 doctors and sent it to Uncle, and Uncle took it to Swami. And Swami looks at each page and he gives the okay for each 9 of us, actually, to start. And he also, at that moment, gives an inauguration date for the endoscopy. It was just amazing. So I've never worked in the super specialty hospital before, so I had to go make a trip just to kind of introduce myself, because we had to order all the equipment, everything. I had no idea what to do, but I took pictures of our unit at the University of Michigan. I sent it to them. I said, "Can you make this look like this?" So it was exactly like a replica when I went back in July. So in the meantime, what happened was I decided to actually leave University of Michigan for this amazing, amazing job that was created for me in Ohio by my boss. So I went but I wasn't really happy there, so I decided to come back. So, and this was a few months before going to Puttaparthi for the inauguration. So I go to my boss back in the University of Michigan. He says, I need to talk to you about a few things. He said, okay. So I'm just sitting with him in the room, and no one else in the room. And I said, one, I want to come back. He was so happy. By the way, I need to take 3 to 6 months off as soon as I come back. Because I told him about this. And believe it or not, the next line he said, "Are you going down to see Sathya Sai Baba?" I knew Swami was in that room. Now, I've never talked to him about Sathya Sai Baba. So just few months prior, I got an award from the University for Humanism, and they asked me to write something. I always talk about the organization, about Swami. So I don't know if he read it, I'm not sure. But at that moment, for him to ask that question to me, I knew Swami was driving the entire thing. So he said, "Of course you can go as long as you want." So I land, and then I needed someone to teach how to do endoscopy and everything from a nursing standpoint. So I talked to one of my nurses, the head nurse, John. He's never been to any country outside U.S. I said, "John, can you please come and help me to orient the nurses in Puttaparthi?" He said, "Of course." I made sure I went a week earlier. I go to Puttaparthi, and then I decided to stay at least 3 months. No internet inside the ashram unless you go to one of the offices. I'm like, how am I going to do my work? Because I still had to do all my work, my university work, every single day. I needed Wi-Fi access at that time. So the first day I get up, I see this Wi-Fi access. It says Gopala, some Krishna's name actually. Then I got into the internet right away because we have a firewall at the university. So I have no idea how that came about. And that lasted for an entire week. And then one day it just stopped. So I was able to do my work sitting inside the ashram as if nothing. And the day it stopped, I went to the hospital, and that morning, one of the Swami students comes running to me and says, Sir, Dr. Hari, you know what? The Wi-Fi we have now in the office, so you can start using it from today. So Swami made sure that I had Wi-Fi access in Prasanthi Nilayam for a full week. So And then John comes, he orients everyone next. And you can play the video. I'll keep it short for the video, actually. I'm not going to show the entire video. And so Swami had not come to the super specialty hospital apparently for more than 6 months. So that morning, we thought he was coming. So everyone was ready. The Rudram boys, everyone was ready. And something was bothering me. I said, we need to sing some bhajans, But everything was so chaotic, it never happened. And then immediately after that, Swami sent a word that he wasn't going to come. Then they said, that's it. You're not going to come, and then you can start doing the endoscopy today. We actually had a patient already set up and all that. And then, so we went for lunch. We came back and said, we really need to do some bhajans. Whether Swami comes or not, we got to do bhajans. So we did 3 bhajans. We got up. Believe it or not, literally 2 seconds later, we get a call from Swami's home saying that he's coming. So we tell the senior leadership that he's coming. They're like, no, he's not. He didn't tell us. To me, it was a very good example. Sometimes, all of us actually, I used to use my mom as a proxy to tell Swami what I wanted, because she was getting, a lot of interviews and all that. But at the end of the day, the core element, that connection is between us and Swami alone. No one can form that connection. People can give letters or whatever it is. They can be facilitators. But it's our connection. And then they realize Swami is actually coming. And now they're rushing to come there before Swami. And this video is a beautiful video, Swami. And I was blessed with showing Swami around. And I'll kind of talk through. The sound is not very loud, but that's okay. So I was actually inside. I wasn't seeing anything. I didn't know what was actually going on inside, actually. And because he hadn't come for a long time, the entire hospital hallways were full of people. All these people are waiting because they have not seen Swami for 6 months or so in the hospital. People always say you got to get permission first to ask Swami to touch his feet. Sometimes, you take advantage. This was so beautiful. He came to the lamp. First, he lighted 1 wick, and the boys were trying to take him away from it. He was insistent to light each one of them. He would not leave till he lighted each one of them. It was so beautiful. Then he comes and looks at his own photo. It felt like eternity. It really felt like eternity. Then that's John. So I asked John to give Swami a flower. John gives him a flower, and Swami, talks a few things, and he gives it back to him. Now John is very perplexed, right? In this country, you don't give things back. So he's like, "What do you mean you're giving it back? I gave it to you." So I told John, "Hey, this is a blessing, that Swami has actually given it back." So I didn't want to show Swami just a video of a colonoscopy, I wanted to actually demonstrate it. So we asked the engineers in the hospital to create this tube with a hole, so I could actually, like as if I'm entering a colon, show him on the screen what exactly we do. And what you see there is a flower bud. So we asked them to put a hole, so I put a flower bud inverted, so it looks like a polyp, like a growth. So I wanted to show everyone, Swami, how when you see a polyp, we snare it, what we call a snare, put a ring around it, cut it. So, and John is explaining. And we practiced it, I don't know how many times that morning. Boom, 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 cut, cut, cut. There, nothing is happening. I am sweating because, I'm worried that Swami is going to leave, right? And here I am, God in front of me. I'm not looking at him. I'm praying to myself, Swami, please make this cut. Finally, it cut. And so I kind of retrieved it and I showed it because I wanted it to be nice on the screen, so I made sure that this bud was huge. And Swami knows everything, but he wants to teach others as well. He knows that polyps are not that big. Of course, they are sometimes, but most of them are very small. And he says, you mean to tell me the polyps are so big each and every time? He says, no, Swami, it's very small. But he wanted others in the room to kind of be taught about it, actually. So, but the beautiful thing is that once he went back after all this to the mandir, he got all the students together, it seems, and he explained every step of what happened in the unit. It was so beautiful. It's really nice, actually. I'll just show a few, another minute or two of the So we were taking him from one room to another, and the next room, Dr. Kamath was there. We were explaining about more advanced procedures, what we do, taking stones out of what we call bile ducts and all that. I speak Telugu, but I get very nervous speaking with Telugu, with people who really speak Telugu. So I'm just speaking in English, and here, someone is like, I can feel someone kind of tapping on my back, hitting me on my back. I'm like, who's interrupting me when I'm talking with Swami? Yeah. And I look up, it says, talking Telugu, which I did. And then I went back to English right away. And he was kind of really not making jokes, but really talking about so many things. It was such a beautiful experience. You can stop the video, actually. And then, after that, he gave Arati and he left. And he was very happy because we took him back to the front at what we call the recovery room. And we had made all these pamphlets in different languages about different diseases. He took each one of them and he said, happy, happy, happy. He was really happy. And then what happened was, after that, I actually stayed back in Puttaparthi for 3 months. And because I had to still complete my own work in the evenings, so I never came back on time for darshan, because once I was done with my work, I used to stay back because that's the only place I had the Wi-Fi access, get all my work done. So by the time I made sure that I went back, literally the last few minutes of when the cafeteria was open, to get my food. But this is how Swami does, that we always think about the proximity or the physical aspect of it. Everything that we do, the love we get from each other itself is a blessing. And when I was there, people were just giving me things that they got from Swami. I mean, there was this lady who apparently, she and her friends used to come to Puttaparthi. This was in the 60s, late 50s, 60s. These are all original photographs of Swami at that time. She had made an album, and she gave me the entire album to me. She said, you need to have this from now on. She collected over the years sand that Swami walked on. She gave me the sand that Swami walked on. She gave me that necklace that Swami had blessed. She was just giving me things. I felt like she was like one of the gopikas of Krishna. That's so much devotion. It was just an amazing experience. People were giving me vibhuti that Swami had given him throughout this 3 months. So to me, that was the biggest blessing of all, just kind of being there during that time. This was a very powerful moment in my life, and I started talking about, how do we kind of stay in that state of that love and surrender all the time. One day, I was at a wedding reception, and I was talking with one of the Sai aunties. I don't know what this. I was still a young adult at that time. I told her, I don't know why I told her, but I told her, I've reached a moment in my life, I want to give up my life for Swami. I don't know what made me say it, but I meant it when I told her that. That night, I get a dream. In that dream, I'm inside the mandir in Prasanthi Nilayam. I'm the only guy on the men's side, on the veranda, on the stage. Thousands and thousands of people, and the bhajans start. I could hear the bhajans, and Swami is walking through the bhajans. He comes straight to me. I'm sitting there. He puts his hand on me, and he starts waving his hand. The vibhuti just starts pouring and pouring and pouring on me. I'm completely drenched in vibhuti. And then he leaves, and I get up. When I think of that moment, I think of this is how I want to be every second of my life. Of course, we get distracted. We have so many things going on. How do we kind of steer our back to the core center, that moment of total surrender, not thinking about the results, not thinking about anything, doing what we are supposed to do, doing what we want to do, doing the right thing, obviously. So it was very powerful from that perspective. And, and I always say, this was another wedding reception. I don't know why this happens. Swami comes in my dreams, but he never actually talks to me. So I tell this Sai sister, I said, Swami always comes to my dreams, but he never actually talks to me in the dream. And I leave the conversation. That night I have a dream. The discussion, there's some discussion about service and all that. Swami comes to me literally like this in front of my face, and he says, I know that's what you want to do. He actually speaks to me. And since then, I've had a lot of dreams. Again, he's never talked to me again. But it's these are very powerful moments. Not that we need to have dreams, not that we need to have the physical things, that recognition that that Swami's love is there for each one of us. Is so important. So one of the things, when we do medical camps, at the end of the camp, is that we need to give report to Swami, how many patients we saw each day. So I used to do all the adding up, and one day we take it to Swami, and I don't remember the exact number. I think it was like 586 or something like that. And Swami says, oh, I think you saw 588. Literally, it was like two, and I'm thinking, I counted this twice. There's no way. Of course, it's Swami, right? So we go back, I count again, exactly the number that he gave. So it was beautiful for us to kind of have that opportunity to give him that reports. And this was the birthday, before the physical body passed on. And we didn't understand the significance of this till obviously later on. So anytime we have medical camps, there's always something happens. A flower drops on the first day. Swami sends us vibhuti for all the people in the medical team. And that particular time, it didn't happen. And then the last day, the last before day, he actually sends us it's huge vibhuti packets. And then he instructs everyone to come and see him the following day. So we go to the mandir, and the international music team, the orchestra was there. They didn't get a chance to perform the previous day, so they were going to perform that day because they were all leaving that day. So Swami comes, and he's just reading the reports. And the next slide, he went and talked to. Here we are seated in. He came to each and every one of us, either said something or he personally handed over vibhuti to us. He went back, and then he came again, and he did that again. And then he goes out and he leaves. Arati, and then he leaves. I was feeling very bad for the for the music orchestra team because they were all leaving actually. But so that was a very powerful moment for us on the medical team, on the medical camp team, I should say. He gave us all that attention. He knew, we didn't know what was going to happen. Afterwards. The last several years, I'm going to kind of shift a bit. We've been involved in a lot of camps in Africa. Some of the young adults here were part of that. Truly a blessing. And it was a really a great experience. We started with Benin and Nigeria. I never knew there was a country called Benin till I was told the camp is there. It was an amazing experience. One of the things you learn, and I think as a Sai community, we're all very good at it, that is, we figure out ways to do things no matter what the situation is, where the place is. So we get, we can work in any situation. So here we're having, we saw like hundreds and hundreds of people every single day. A lot of need for a vision. There's nothing like giving someone eyesight by just giving them something as simple as reading glasses, because they have not seen well in years. Now they're able to see so well in years, actually. And the next day, we couldn't actually conduct the camp in the school for different reasons. So we actually conducted under the sun, under the trees. So you got to be creative, taking advantage of whatever the situation is, and just literally tables under the sun and taking care of. Again, never interrupt the work that we are supposed to do because of whatever is coming across us. Sometimes we have to shift roles. This is important. A lot of times we think, oh, I'm a doctor, I can only do doctor's work. But we got to do everything, whatever is given to us. Don't ask, of course, if I can see patients, that's great. But if I'm asked to sweep the floor, I love to sweep the floor. That's important as well. If you go to Kazakhstan, a lot of the volunteers, you don't know who they are actually. And there you see people cleaning bathrooms, you're cleaning the floors. And then it turns out some of these people are like, some of them world-renowned. There's this lady who's like so well-known. She's a soprano. One is a ballet dancer. You wouldn't even think that by just seeing them doing simple work, a lot of heavy work, but in a very simplistic way. These are all teachable moments for us when we see others doing work just selflessly. I think it's important to learn that. Of course, we don't get it all the time, but it's very important actually. Again, the power of sight is nothing comparable. Then we've moved on the next year to 3 countries. These are the 3 countries that Swami had actually visited in East Africa: Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. So it was such a privilege to be in these 3 countries. It was pretty exhausting because we had to go from one country to another on the road. Most of the time, we flew in once. But a huge team. So it takes a lot, both from the locals and us as well. But it was really worth it. You can see hundreds and hundreds of people. And some of these people come in, like 4 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we don't even get there till 8:39. So they're waiting for us because they need to be seen. And this is important for us to kind of recognize as well. And again, listening. We give medications, that's fine, but just listening is such an important aspect of what we should be doing, all of us actually, in our lives actually. We had screening studies, all the young adults here you can recognize, I'm sure. Eye services. So in East Africa, we had many more additional services actually. Pediatrics, gynecology, which is a big thing, need actually, a lot of children, dental services. We have physical therapy now in our team. We're kind of taking this model now in Region 5. We actually have formed, we don't call them mobile clinics in the truest sense, but we are going to places where the need is, and going consistently and offering not only medical, so it's looking at, hey, what are the strengths in our center? In our center, we have doctors, pharmacists, nurses, physical therapists. So we're kind of taking advantage of that and offering those services. In Chicago, they have psychology and other things as well. So this is a new thing for us. We were able to do endoscopy in the field. We have disposable endoscopes available in the US. They were actually given to us free of charge. Of course, they're not earth-friendly, so we got to be cautious about that as well. Because each time you use one, you got to throw it off. But we were actually able to do endoscopy on the field for people who actually needed it. It was very impressive, actually. These are, again, our amazing young adults. Young adults, I think, give us energy. To me, they really teach me that discipline. Again, it's important, that they don't sway away much. We as adults tend to do that. I think it's important for us to see what the young adults want. We need to empower our young adults. Nothing is right or wrong, but of course we want to be there. We want to kind of extend our experience, our conscience, to them and be there for them, but never let them not to do what they want to do. That's important. And sometimes it feels like contradictory. I don't think it is. I think it's how we do it, how we, do that. It's such an important aspect because they have so much to give and we have so much to give them as well. And, and to the communities, right, that we live in. And I don't like to use the word young adults are of our future because that feels kind of far away. Young adults are it. I mean, they are the current, the future as well. But they're the current. We need to think of them as the current in every aspect of how we conduct ourselves. We, as adults, we have experience. We have, but yesterday our sister said, all I was doing was taking care of my son. I wasn't reading any books. But what use is reading the books if you can't serve, if we can't do what we are supposed to do? And I think of that in the context of young adults, actually. We can say a lot of things, but what use is it if we are not following that? That's very important, I think. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be there for them or that they want to do things on their own. So, of course, young adults, it looks like sometimes, they don't want us to be there. I'm convinced they want us to be there with them, so at least from a distance, And I think we need to recognize that and at least, hey, we're there, we're supporting you. I'm here for you. It's very, very important, actually. And when you see SSC kids, we see in our centers here as well. Please tell me if I'm running out of time. I might have already run. Okay, thank you. You see even in our centers, it's kids, they get so excited moving a chair. It's something. It could be very small, but they want to be part of it. Let them be involved in it. That's how they grow. That's how they see service. That's how they, want to emulate. I'm always about emulating others when it's good. I'm not shy about it. And that's very important as well. And when you see these children actually, especially in the African schools, they are very good about helping each other. So in Kenya, what they do is that the upper graders actually make lunch for the lower graders. You can see in that photo, they're making chapatis and all that. So one day I went to help them, and someone asked this question. I don't know why they asked that question. They asked the question, hey kids, how many of you think that Dr. Hari helps his wife in the kitchen? Every kid raised their hand. Little do they know the truth, right? But kids are so pure in that way. Sometimes when I see children, of course I can think I'm an adult, I know more. Of course I know certain things more, but we as adults sometimes have moved away from that simplistic purity sometimes. That simplicity, a lot of times, actually. I always think, how can I get back to that simplicity, that purity of our young children, actually? That doesn't mean I'm a kid. I'm a kid at heart, but it doesn't mean I want to turn into a kid. I want to emulate. I want to learn from that kid. The same thing. I want to learn from that young adult. I want to learn from that brother or sister. I want to learn from that elder. It doesn't matter what age. So that's very important, actually. So the Sai schools in Africa, there are a lot of Sai schools which are really amazing. When you go there, you learn a lot. And our most recent, next slide, trip, we also took part, Sister Ramadevi, and Sister Nilayam is part of this as well, the SSEHV, and on the medical side, this entity called EASE, eating well, having the right attitude. And when you think about right attitude, anything actually, attitude of service, attitude of taking care of your body, sleeping well, and exercising, all of which are very important. So I had the fortunate to be working with her in Benin. We actually did this session with a lot of young adults in college, and next, most recently in Madagascar with these high school children, which is amazing. Even when you look at these SSC children, right, they know a lot. People are, the generations are learning much more and much faster than we did. So I think we need to, at some level, stop thinking as children, adults. We need to think, how knowledgeable their wisdom from that perspective rather than their actual age, actually. So we had a lot of fun with these very young people. And you see these young people, these high school kids, the comments that they made, so powerful. It helped me to realize that my well-being is important not only for me, but also for my community. This is the one thing I've noticed over the years about our young people, is that when they say something, we think that they're saying for themselves. We adults do that. Young adults, young people, they're saying for their peers as well. Anytime they raise a concern that they want to do something, they're thinking about everyone in their community, their young adult community or the kids community. They're not just thinking about themselves. And I think we need to be open to that every time, single time we hear someone young tell us something or ask us something or raise a concern. So by simply taking care of oneself, we can inspire others. Again, it kind of goes back to this powerful aspect of, being able to inspire others, not in an egoistic way, but we can do it. Swami always says that we have the power to do things that we think about when we follow our heart. And in that same context, we can inspire others and be open to inspiring by others as well. And it was both informative and inspiring, reminding us that the true health is not merely the absence of illness, but the presence of balance in body, mind, and conscience. These are young people who are telling us this. So, they're already thinking so much. It's very, very important, actually. To me, there's strength in unity, as Sister Anu was talking about. There's so much strength in unity, and we can do much more. And we are doing a lot in the communities as a Sai organization. We should never underestimate that, the power of what we can do. I would like to leave with this quote. This is a quote, of course, by Swami, but I was trying to read this quote to Swami when he came to the GI unit, because I was so inspired by everyone. Most of these people, when I was involved with the endoscopy unit, I didn't know them at all, but it didn't matter. For them, the goal was serving others. So when you think of it that way, it doesn't matter what our roles are. We need to, as a unit, make it work. So that's the power of unity. That should be our focus, not what he or she is doing. So I want to read this quote to me. So I was showing this to Swami. I'm trying to tell him, Swami, it was amazing. People so much came to help us in unity. And I was showing his own quote, like I was praying to him in front of him. Together, all together, the knowledge we have gained, we shall brighten and brighten till it enlightens all. Together, all together, we shall share as friends the fortune we have earned, the vision and thrill. Together, all together, we shall acclaim peace till we raise its praise into worshipful deeds. Together, all together, we shall intone the pranava. Om, 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 Om. We shall together sing. Sathya Sai Baba. And once again, thank you so much for the incredible opportunity to talk to you all. Thank you.